Hey everyone, and welcome back to Wizbit's Random Gaming and this Thursday's Wizbit's Random Topics. Now what I wanted to talk about today is games that I don't like, games that I hate. Now hate is an extreme term, but there is definitely some genres out there that I don't get on with whatsoever. So I wanted to just talk about those today. Now I don't want to go into games specifically title by title. I want to talk about genres that I don't get on with. I'm primarily a video game player from the late 80s, mid 80s, up to present day. And I kind of grew up in that arcade era, whereas you put your money in and you was presented with an action-packed game straight away. Now that wasn't necessarily the case at home when I was playing my microcomputer, whatever one I had at the time. Primarily it was my Amstrad, but those were the games that I preferred to try and pick up. It was very much hit and miss when you was buying 8-bit micro stuff. You know, you had the reviews to go on in your magazines like CVG, and you had the screenshots on the back. That was it. So you just had to go on that. Word of mouth was, wasn't that trustworthy back then. You had your school friends who was pretty much in the same boat as you. You know, they was just going by their experience. That doesn't necessarily mean that you was going to like that particular game. So yeah, we kind of trusted the reviews. And I always grew up very much an arcade type player. I love my games. I can get straight into something to do straight away. And I just wanted to talk about genres that are wildly popular and with good reason. I know that the games in these particular genres, or some of them, most of them, are brilliant games in their own right. But it's just me on a personal level, I just don't get on with those particular genres. So I'll start with the big one. I don't like RPGs, not in the slightest. I find them quite boring. The story to me is always pretty similar when you're playing an RPG. Yeah, I know I'm gonna get some hate for that. The story's not the same. It's different in this game. It's different in that. Yeah, look, it probably is. I probably haven't given them the time to see the different storylines out there and progressions and stuff like that. But like I say, the reason for that is because I just don't like the genre. I find them a little bit too time consuming. I absolutely detest turn-based combat. It's not me at all. I find it very boring. And I know there's alternative ways of playing RPGs. It's not all turn-based combat. But I think I'm at that stage now where I'm just not really going to be getting into RPGs. Despite what anyone says to me and what anyone recommends. I just made my mind up about that particular genre, and yeah, I'm not a fan. And they're huge sellers, aren't they? They're popular for a reason. And with that saying, and I get some flack from quite a lot of people about this particular one, is with me not liking RPGs, that kind of means I'm not a Zelda fan, and I'm not. I love the whole concept of Zelda. I love the character arc. I love the merchandise and stuff like that. But the games, it's just not for me. Shout out to my friend Holly. She's trying to convince me to play Wind Waker when I picked it up on the Wii U, which is coming soon, because obviously I'm going for the Wii U full set. And I have said to Holly, I will give it a go. For how long though? I didn't promise. So it might be 5 minutes, it might be 15 minutes, it could be 5 hours, depends on how I get on with that game. But I will give that one a try. So yeah, RPGs are not my thing. I know, like I say, I know they're massively popular and I totally understand why. I just can't get into them. Now, another genre that I'm not massively into is puzzle games. Now, I'm one of the only people probably in the world that wasn't a massive Tetris fan when it all kicked off in the late 80s, when Tetris was booming, when it was released as the packing game with your Nintendo Game Boy worldwide. Tetris is a great game, don't get me wrong, I've played it and I've enjoyed it, I'm just not very good at it. I'm not very good at those kind of games. End of. When it comes to those kind of games, I think the only one that I've ever really spent a lot of time on is Puzzle Bobble. Now I like Puzzle Bobble. I can play that one for hours on end, and maybe Columns to an extent. Although I think the novelty effect of Columns has worn off over the years. It's been released on so many different systems, so many different compilations, and I have played it, and yeah, the effect of that is gone. I don't think I'll be playing that ever again, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, puzzle games in that vein. There's some good ones out there though that I have played. Like I said, Puzzle Bobble is the one that I can sit on for hours. Is it Magical Drop as well? I found that was quite a good one. I recently rediscovered that one when I was playing it on the Evercade, and yeah, I did put some time into that one. Now my reason behind this, I touched on it briefly earlier, is because I'm rubbish at the games. I'm really no good at them, and you know, if I'm gonna have fun with a game, I've got to progress, I've got to be good at the game to some extent, surely. And yeah, puzzle games I'm definitely no good at. Tetris I'm absolutely pathetic at. I'm probably the worst Tetris player in my household, and that goes with having 3 kids in the house that have probably played it about 4 or 5 times. That tells you everything you need to know about my skill level on Tetris. Another genre of games that I don't like is strategy games. Now this pretty much boils down to what I was talking about originally, where I grew up as an arcade player. Okay, so I liked chucking my money in, the 10 pence to 20 pence, depending on what era you grew up in, because arcades were 10 pence at one point. Yeah, I'm that old. And you was treated to your game straight away. I grew up with that, I expected that, and I enjoyed that. Strategy games, I just didn't have the patience for. And also, growing up, I probably didn't really have the platform to appreciate them. Now, I know there's strategy games out there on your 8-bit micros, but for me, they was always more associated with your 16-bit micros, your Atari STs, your Amigas, and anything beyond that. But when I did try them, I found myself very confused at a young age trying to play those sort of games. Didn't know what I was doing. Now, it would be a totally different case now if I was probably to reacquaint myself with that genre of game. Obviously, I've got a little bit more smarter. I know, yeah, look, it's debatable, but yeah, I am a bit smarter. Okay, how smart is very debatable. But yeah, I'd be able to get on it and play a game a lot more competently than I would have in 1987, 1988. But yeah, the whole genre just doesn't appeal to me. Again, it's slow paced, and I just can't get to grips with that kind of game. It's just not for me. So as you can see, there's probably a trend here in some of the games that you can see that I don't really like. The more slow paced stuff is definitely probably not my cup of tea. I was always, like I said, someone who wanted to play games and kick off from the very outset of your game with action, and that's why I love the arcade era of the mid 80s till the mid 90s. I think that was just the boom period of gaming for me on a personal level. Yeah, I loved that aspect of it. So yeah, we've got puzzle games, we've got RPGs, and we have strategy games. Now, the next genre of games I'm gonna put into a category that I don't like, hate if you will, is point and click. Again, I found them quite boring. I know there's some good stuff out there. I think the first one that I ever played that I got some enjoyment out of was Nightshade. I think it is on the NES. It's kind of a point and click adventure on a console, which is quite unusual in itself. And maybe Maniac Mansion, which I didn't play too much of, but a friend had it, And yeah, it was at that period of time where if you had a NES game, believe me, you would have paid probably 30 to 40 pounds for that game. And in the late 80s to the early 90s, that was, I don't know what that would be the equivalent of in today's money, but it's not cheap, let's put it that way. So if your parents were buying you that game, you were playing that game. You weren't getting anything else. You made your choice, and your parents were telling you, yeah, you make the most of that game, because you're not getting anything else until your birthday or Christmas or whatever it may be, whatever sort of spending habits or gifting habits that was in your own household. Mine, like most of my friends, it was you got a game for your birthday, maybe 2 at Christmas, and yeah, if you picked up one you didn't like, yeah, you was gonna make the most of it. Simon's Quest was one. I remember going back sometime, and after the great experience I had with Castlevania 1, picking up Simon's Quest thinking it was going to be more of the same. I was very, very wrong with that, and for that reason I got a lot further on Simon's Quest than I really wanted to. It's because, you know, with limited games there, you know, you make the most of what you've got, and yeah, Simon's Quest was one that I regretted buying. Probably the most out of all the games that I picked up in between birthdays and Christmas. But yeah, point and click games. Yeah, I've never seen the appeal. I find them quite boring. I know there's some good storylines out there and that sort of thing. And again, I'm probably going to get a bit of hate out there because point and click is a quite popular genre. It's just never resonated with myself. Now, probably slightly hypocritical here, but I have just recently picked up the Broken Sword collection on the Evercade, which is 2 point and click games. So I'm going to try those out because I do collect every release for the Evercade. Now I'm hoping that they've been I hope they translate better to the Evercade than their previous attempts at point and click adventures on the system, which were almost unplayable in many ways. They just didn't come across well on the Evercade. Now I did try Broken Sword 1 last night, very briefly, whilst the family was watching Sunday night TV. I pulled out the Super Pocket. I thought, let me give it a go. Not the best way to experience the game, far from it, but I definitely was intrigued, and I'm going to be putting some time into that one in the near future. So the Broken Sword collection, maybe that can help me change my mind about that particular genre, which point and click. Other games, genres that I'm not keen on. Racing games. Now I'm not a massive car fan in any way, shape or form. Lots of people grew up loving cars, you know, as a kid. I didn't. I didn't care for cars whatsoever, whereas all my friends would be like, look at this Ferrari, look at this Porsche. To me, it didn't excite me at all. And that was probably because I came from a non-driving household, believe it or not. So just there was no real interest in cars in any way for me. Now I love arcade races that are fun, that you don't have to put too much time in. I don't want the game to be too realistic. So there's definitely games out there that I enjoy. Outrun being one of them. Who doesn't enjoy Outrun? I'm terrible at Outrun, always have been, and I'm pretty much certain that I always will be, but it's a fun arcade racer. Power Drift is another one I loved back in the day. What a great game that was. I believe that was Sega. And the arcade game of that, you know, at the time, it blew my mind. The graphics, the scrolling, and everything about that game. Yeah, Power Drift was one that I would definitely sink some money into, even though primarily in the back of my mind, I knew you didn't like arcade racing or racing games in general. So the ones that I've played the most of is going to be Mario Kart and games like that, kart type things. Mario Kart came out, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Mario Kart was 92. And yeah, Nintendo created their own genre, really. So even though it is technically a racing game, the whole kart business is its own thing. You know, it spawned many rip-offs, many sequels, many spin-offs. And if it's a go-karting type experience like that, that's based on the Mario Kart franchise, then yeah, I can get into that. Single player and multiplayer. Those are the sort of games that I can not just tolerate, but really enjoy. But when it comes to things like your Gran Turismos and stuff like that, not for me. I can't get into those games whatsoever. Brilliant realism. Absolutely, I can see it when my friends would be playing it. They'll be souping up their cars. And I can see the appeal in those games and why they like them. But for me, once you put the control pad in my hand, I'd be bored stiff. I don't really care about putting an exhaust on a car. I don't care about my alloys. And I certainly didn't care for the realistic gameplay. You know, it's almost like playing hard driving. Yeah, anyone that remembers that game, that would be enough to put anyone, even the most avid racing fan, off of racing video games. So yeah, those are the genres that I really don't like. And like I say, hate is a very strong word. So, but there is definitely aspects that I hate about those genres. There's no denying that. So RPGs, puzzle games, strategy games, point and click games, and races. So those are the genres that I'm not keen on. I'm sure there's some more, but I can't think off the top of my head. There are exceptions to the rule in every single one of those cases, I would imagine. So it's not like I won't play anything from those particular genres, but in general, those games, those genres are just not for me. Now, I wouldn't mind, into 2025, sinking a bit of time, where possible, into some of these genres, but with your recommendations. Based on what I've said today and what you believe that I might struggle with in terms of these games and these genres, I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts to let me know what games you would suggest that I might check out, put some time into, that might make me think twice about what I've said here today. So let me know in the comments below. RPG games, strategy games, point and click games, racing games, puzzle games that you think might break the mold for someone with taste like myself. Bad taste in a lot of people's eyes, I'm pretty certain. As you're watching this, there'll be a lot of people thinking, this guy, he's got no taste. But yeah, we're all different. That's one of the great things about video games and collecting, the hobby in general, is that, you know, there's so many alternatives out there. And for me, it's just those ones just never resonated with me. Anyway guys, thank you for watching the video today. If you happen to enjoy the content, please take the time to consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that bell notification below so that you know as and when I'm going to be uploading new content, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care for now.